Good. Let me introduce Alan Arant. Is that correct, Alan?
Pronounced Arant, but kind of like you said, close enough.
Arant.
That's right.
And you and I are going to have something to talk about after the discussion. If you want to hang around,
Sure.
I'm an ex ROTC guy,
Oh, are you really?
like you, except I got a
Okay.
couple of years on you.
No, just a few. It's only a few.
You may have heard of something called Vietnam.
I have. Yes, sir.
I was Vietnam era, and I wasn't a chopper guy like you. I was a desk jockey. But we'll talk a little bit more about
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah, I'm a RTC guy at a Mississippi State. So
Well, I was up in Boston. We'll talk about a little. You want to talk about some protests and some civil unrest.
I'll bet.
We'll talk about Boston in 1970. Anyway, without further hesitation, let me introduce Alan, who is owner operator of Chick-fil-A restaurant in Bartlett, Tennessee.
Right.
And with everything that's going on, Alan, we are really interested in hearing your story and how you got started and how you're proceeding in these challenging times. So, my new friend, please take it away and handle questions any way you like. But we're done
Okay.
at about 5:15.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sounds
Alan.
good.
Thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right. Those of you that have video, can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me? That's always the concern. You're over Zoom, you start talking and you can't hear you. Well, great. Well, like Professor Rowan said, my name is Alan Arant. First, I want to thank him for this kind invitation, and thank to Radesh and then Tim Floor at the Culinary Institute. Really enjoying our partnership with them, and we had some great things in store, and then we had a pandemic hit, and that kind of derailed a few things. And so we're looking forward to getting started back, and we have a couple of folks that work for me who are from the Institute, and they are just wonderful, and we love them. And look forward to internships and some great opportunities in the future. So what I want to talk about today is and I've got a small list, and I'll probably take 30 minutes to talk. And then after that, I'll leave it open for questions, and we'll see how far we get. And as I'm talking, if you have a question for me, feel free to stop me, and I can go on that route if you'd like to. But I am very excited to be here, and I thank you for the invitation. All right, so what I want to talk about is I want to talk about my background and my road to how I became a Chick-fil-A operator. And then I want to talk to you about how you could become a Chick-fil-A operator, because my understanding is my audience, if you're not staff, are typically sophomores. Is that correct?
Correct. Primarily.
Correct. Okay. Primarily. Okay. When I was a sophomore in college, I didn't really know what I was doing besides ROTC. And so I had some really good mentors who helped steer me in the right direction. So I want to talk about how you become an operator, what makes Chick-fil-A different. And I'll use a lot of specifics on my restaurant locally here in Bartlett. And then I want to talk about what I foresee as just a few threats to our industry and to my own business. And then when I see as some great opportunities to my industry and to my own business. And I want to talk about my vision for the future, and then open up any questions that you have. So I can't guarantee I'll even take 30 minutes. So I'm not usually too long-winded. We'll see how it goes. All right, we'll get started. So my background is I'm from Mississippi, born and raised. I graduated from Mississippi State University in 2009, so I'm 33 years old, so I'm not that old. I have a degree in accounting, and I went on active duty right after college through RTC, and I was selected to be an attack reconnaissance helicopter pilot, where I did that for 8 years and deployed to Afghanistan. I've got 12 years of total service, including some time in the National Guard while I was in college and also after my active duty time. And I just left active duty in 2017, so not too long ago. So kind of a unique thing about what I did is my last 2 years in the military, I was stationed in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is just south of Atlanta, in Army Recruiting Command of all things. And so my job was to motivate and inspire my 50 soldiers over about a 6,600 square mile area to get young men and women in to join the Army. And so I had a sales force of soldiers, as it were, to go and recruit young men and women to serve our nation. And while I was there, and when I tell folks who are in Chick-fil-A this, they all just kind of shake their heads and go, there's just no way that's true. It just doesn't happen like that. But I was literally at a backyard get together with some friends from church, and we were talking about just what the future held and leadership. And a guy came over who was just a friend of a friend, and I didn't know him. And he started asking me what I was going to do after the Army, because I was leaving the Army in about 8 months or so. And I started sharing with him my leadership philosophy and my vision of what I really wanted to do after the military. And by the way, I was like 29 years old at this point. And he said, well, I have to go, but what you're talking about is what we look for in Chick-fil-A. And I'm in franchisee selection. And about half of the people we interview are former military people. Because of your level of leadership that you come out of the service with. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that sounds neat. That's fast food. That's not for me. Let's just be real. It's fast food. I mean, who wants to really get in fast food? And so, funny thing was, I started thinking about it and talking to people, and met some folks locally who owned restaurants. And I just started really becoming just enamored with just how amazing the people were. And that's really what turned me on to Chick-fil-A, was just the people I met. And so 3 weeks after I had that conversation, I applied to be an operator. And then the short story is 10 months later, I was selected to be the owner operator of the restaurant in Bartlett. And so during that time, during that 10-month period, I left the Army and I actually moved back to Memphis. I'm from Mississippi, around Cleveland, Mississippi. And so I moved to Memphis and started working as a project manager over at FedEx in Collierville. Had no idea what I was doing in the corporate world either, just like I didn't know, I didn't know anything what I was doing in the military when I first got in. But I was only there for 5 months, and Chick-fil-A selected me during that time to own the restaurant in Bartlett. And so I had zero restaurant experience. I mean, you got to understand, I didn't know how we even made chicken. I didn't know how any of that process worked whatsoever. But what I did know was leadership. I did know leadership. I knew how to inspire people, how to create teams, how to make a change, how to produce results. And so what I did is I quit my job at FedEx, and I had a wife and 3 children at that point. We had just bought a house and went to go work for the operator, Brandon Paulson, in Olive Branch, Mississippi, making $10 an hour, working in this kitchen. Just came in as a team member because I knew I had to do something. And so I had 2 months of experience under my belt working in the kitchen. And at that point, I quit working for Brandon to go to corporate training, where they taught me all the ins and outs of how to be an operator, which that's a joke. They didn't teach me a whole lot. They taught me how to run the financial systems. They taught me how to do inventory, but they didn't actually teach me what it meant to be a Chick-fil-A operator. That's something they expect you to find out on your own and to know when you get on the ground. Just like any business, you really do have to figure it out. But the good news is we have a ton of help in my franchise in order to do this. So it was a lot of fun. So grand open in April 2018. So I've been open about 2.5 years. Like I said, before our grand open, I had 2.5 months of experience. I had no idea what I was doing. My leadership team and I joke all the time that we just had no clue what we were doing, and we just feel like we got so lucky in a lot of things. But there was a lot of intentionality behind that, which I think is what really made the difference in a lot of ways. So that's really my story. That's the real short version of where I come from and my road to become a Chick-fil-A operator. Really, the way you become a Chick-fil-A operator is it takes a lot of time. The simplest answer is that that's a path that you're interested in pursuing, which it is a great path and filled with lots of rewards, and absolutely love it. Is that you have to apply. The short answer is it's an application process. It's not expensive, because I was married with 3 kids, had a mortgage. Coming out of the Army as a captain, I didn't have a whole lot of money myself. And so it's not expensive to get into, but the hardest thing is the application process. I think last year they had 68,000 people apply, and they selected about 50 to 75 candidates to actually go and own restaurants. And the numbers are about roughly the same every year. And a large portion of those, probably up to 20 or 30,000, are probably people that think that they can just, buy into Chick-fil-A. And that's not really how it works. And so probably about 30 to 35,000 applicants are serious. And so you're still looking at a very low percentage. There was even an article published a year or 2 ago that they said it was easier to get into Harvard than it was to become a Chick-fil-A operator. And so we all kind of laugh and chuckle at that, but it is true. It's very challenging. And so if you want to do this right out of college, I would tell you that your chances are very, very slim. I'm never going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you that they're very, very slim. You're going to have to go get some industry experience in whatever you do, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be the restaurant industry. The majority of Chick-fil-A operators don't come in with restaurant experience. They come in with a lot of leadership experience and ability to influence and motivate and train people and produce results. That's really, in a nutshell, what Chick-fil-A is looking for, is that sort of thing. All right, so that's me. That's how I become an operator on the short story. Chick-fil-A just really in the beginning captured me with the amount of people and the way the people are, and just every single one of them I've met just has a true heart to serve people and cares about other folks and wants to do their best. And so that's really what turned me on the franchise. And so now I want to talk about what makes Chick-fil-A different. And I'll talk specifics about my restaurant in Bartlett as well. So like I said, we grand opened in April 2018. And so we've had a nice run of it. We are probably going to finish the year as the highest volume Chick-fil-A store in the country by how many guests we serve. And so it's a very, very busy location. And so I have to have lots and lots of levels of very engaged and involved leadership to make sure that we can make this business run the way it needs to from a financial perspective, and also produce not just great food, but remarkable experiences for our guests. Because a lot of folks are coming to Chick-fil-A not just because of the food, but because of the experience that they get as they interact with local teams. And so that's one thing that is really unique about us. All right, so here is what I want to list out for you, what makes us different. The number one thing is local ownership. Every Chick-fil-A is locally owned. They want operators who have some kind of connection to the community in which they're opening the restaurant. It doesn't have to be that you were born there, but they want you to be able to relate to the community about the things that you've done and where you come from. And local ownership really comes down to that as the owner, that my role is to be the number one brand ambassador in the community. The second thing for my team is I'm supposed to be the number one head coach. I set the example just as I did as an officer in the Army. The third thing is I have to get results because, don't mistake anything. This is a business. It is a business first and foremost. And the goal of the business is to, at the end of the day, turn a profit to be able to, for the corporate side to do what they do, and for me to employ my people and to serve a great product to my guests. So it is a business, and you do have to have results from that. And lastly, as I have to, as the owner operator, which then trickles down to my leadership team, I have to maintain my relationships with my guests and with my team members as I'm getting those results, because it's not enough to produce great financial results and then alienate your entire team or produce a bad culture or not have a remarkable guest experience. And so those are the things that local ownership, I think, brings to the table. Another thing about the local ownership, which I think is probably the most important aspect of it, is that the operator, I get to bring my personal vision, mission, and core values into this restaurant and set the stage for what that means for me and for all of my team. And I'll get into that a little bit later. And that then really produces the framework for how we hire our team members, which is really where our success is. Another way that makes Chick-fil-A different is that as an owner operator, this is your sole business interest. I can't go out and own another business. I can't go have stakes in other franchises. I can't go out and run for political office. You can't do any of that kind of stuff. They want you in the business and involved, which I think is very neat. The third one is each operator puts their unique personality and touch on their operations, and that's what Chick-fil-A wants. We already kind of touched on that. I get to tell my story to the community and even build my own local brand. And so the way it's set up is I'm really incentivized to make Bartlett make Chick-fil-A, the shops at Bartlett, part of what people think of when they think of the city of Bartlett and even the surrounding communities. And that's important. Next is I think you have to have a great product that people enjoy, because you can be the nicest people, but if folks don't like your food or it's not priced right, then they're going to go somewhere else. And I think we see a lot of that. So as a brand, we have to make sure that we're not overvaluing our product and under delivering on what our guests expect. And this is, I think, the main one is the number one distinguishing factor is our people. Our people by far are what sets us apart. They are what is unique about our brand as a whole, and also about individual locally owned restaurants. You really can't get the people side right unless you start correctly with me, the operator, understanding what my vision, mission, and core values are. For instance, my mission of what we do every day is to serve quality food in a fast, clean, and friendly environment while enriching our customers' and team members' lives through genuine care. That is every day what we seek to do. Now, we don't always do it perfectly by any means, but that is our guiding light every day as we run the operations of the restaurant, care for our team. The second thing is our vision is what we're always seeking to accomplish and strive toward is to be world-class in all that we do. A lot of the stuff that Truett Cathy, who was our founder of Chick-fil-A, came up with and took came from the Ritz-Carlton. And there's a book by the founder of the Ritz-Carlton called Excellence Wins, I believe it's called. And it is really, really good if you want to understand how the Ritz-Carlton has really been so successful. And Chick-fil-A took a lot of that, and the owner, Horst, actually talks about Truett Cathy in his book. And that's where Chick-fil-A got my pleasure from, is from the Ritz-Carlton, because of the attitude and the emotion that conveys to a guest. Is not just thank you, it's not just a transaction, it's something much deeper to us. And that's what we want our guests to feel. And then our core values. My 3 core values at my restaurant are excellence, stewardship, and influence. When we take a new team member, we go through orientation. We have about a 3-hour orientation, and we cover all of these things, and it goes so deep of what we view excellence is. It's not just how we work, but it's why we work. Stewardship is not just how we care for the actual physical resources of the business, like the cups, the chicken, the straws, that sort of stuff. What about stewarding somebody's time and being a good steward of their time and their emotions, and creating a good environment? And the last one is influence, of how we influence each other, how we influence our guests. And so we really go very deep on those things. And that mission, vision, and core value really sets the stage for how we hire. And that is our framework for how we hire. And actually my hiring, my pitch to prospective team members is better boss, bigger vision, brighter future. And that's really what we seek to inspire in our team members. And we want to show that to our guests through our team members. So another thing about our employees is not just the orientation. We take them through food safety training. They have an extensive 2-week training program where they learn the ins and outs of what I expect them to do, because Chick-fil-A actually doesn't even give me a full training program to run them through. They have all the standards for how we cook chicken, how we bread chicken, how we make lemonade, and so forth. But they don't tell me how to go out and accomplish that, how to actually train somebody. So that's where my experience from the military comes in. As I train soldiers, I would probably say my restaurant and my leaders put more time and effort into training and maintaining programs to show our folks that we have opportunity for growth and development than most businesses, especially in my industry. Let's see. Another thing that we do in orientation, that we do throughout, is that we set very, very clear expectations for our team members and our leaders of what is expected on a daily basis. While that might sound very rudimentary, and running food out to a car is very, very simple, but it's not easy, because it's easy to run the food, to drop the order off and come back in and get another one. But what about the interaction there at the car? What about the pace? What about did they double check the bag and look at and verify that what the guest ordered is actually there? And so we get into, that goes back to our core values of excellence. And so we really set very clear expectations with our team of what they're supposed to do. And to set clear expectations for every new team member, we do 30, 60, and 90-day employee evaluations, where everyone from the shift leaders all the way up to the senior leaders of the restaurant rate and evaluate each team member. And then they have a one-on-one conversation with their senior leader about how they're doing and where they can improve at, what they're doing well, and what the next steps for them are. And then after you pass your 90-day mark, you then do a quarterly evaluation that follows the same process. And that is really how we, in a nutshell, really set ourselves apart with our team members and how we train them, the values that we're looking for, even in the interview. We really care about what was your GPA in school, what are your extracurricular activities, tell me what your views are on work, because that really just goes into the heart of who an individual is, as much as we can tell in an interview. We look at past performance as an indicator of what their future performance is going to be. And sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. And so you're always learning and looking at continuous improvement in everything you do with your team. But our team members are what make us unique. They are what set us apart. I personally and my leaders, I pour most of my time and attention every day I'm in the restaurant is spent with my 6 senior directors and my 4 assistant directors. Each of my directors own a piece of the business. I have one over food safety, one over the kitchen, one over the whole operations, one over marketing, one over my drive-through, and one over talent and training, and they each have an assistant. And so I spend most of my time with them, developing them and getting them to truly own their aspect of the business to produce excellence in all that we do. And so that's our people side. I would like to just kind of give you an idea as you're looking at this industry. Everybody thinks that you need to come in or have fast food experience, and that's not the case at all. Only 2 of my senior leaders had any prior fast food or Chick-fil-A experience. One of them was a missionary in Turkey, and he is now on his way to becoming a Chick-fil-A operator because he's that good. Another one was just a team member at a local restaurant. And then came to me and is now one of my senior leaders. Another one came from Target and Murphy, USA. He was a manager at a local Target. And then another one came from the Memphis Redbirds. Actually, when I grand opened, hired him, he was a community relations coordinator for the Memphis Redbirds. Had never stepped foot into a restaurant to work, but he was a superb leader and he understood what it meant to cast a vision. And I knew I could train him how to do the job. But what I can't train, which is infinitely harder, is his heart. And he had the heart I was looking for as he came in, and that really gets down to what we're after in a restaurant. And lastly, on our people, just as you know, the people that you work with really kind of make your day. The folks you're around, and so our people really make the day for our guests for the time that they're visiting us in the restaurant. So when they come in, we want our team members to treat the guests with genuine care. We don't want it to just be a transaction. We want it to be genuine care that's from the heart. Even when that team member is having a bad day, that we've trained them and cared for them and coached them for them to understand it's okay to have a bad day. But right now I have this guest in front of me, and that guest is the most important thing to me. And I need to treat them that way. One thing that I got from the Ritz-Carlton, which a lot of operators do, is that if we mess something up, which happens, we do a lot of transactions and you're going to mess things up, is that we do everything we can to fix it right there at the lowest and local level and not have to say, ma'am, sir, hold on, let me get someone who can help you with that. I want my team to right then and there be able to help them with that. Because every time you interact with the guest and something's not right, it produces a defect in their mind. And they're always looking for the place that has 0 defects. That might be my competitor down the street, it might be the other Chick-fil-A down the street, or it could be that they just stop coming to Chick-fil-A altogether, or they just get frustrated with me. And so we don't want that. We want remarkable guest experiences and a team that really has the core 4 and produces second mile service. And the core 4 is, you might have seen this Chick-fil-A where you make eye contact, you share a smile, you speak enthusiastically, and you stay connected to make it personal. That's at the base level what we ask of our team members. And second mile service is the things that you can do to go above and beyond to help show a guest that you care for and want to serve them. And so all those things together and so much more really comes down to producing a positive culture and environment for our guests and team members alike. Because especially at my restaurant, I have a view that if my team members do not enjoy what they do, and they are not happy as much as an employer can make you happy, if they do not enjoy what they do and love the folks they work with, then I'm not caring for them the way that I should care for them. And they in turn are probably not producing the experience for my guests that I desire and crave and those guests want. And so we really care for our team in so many ways before we ever think about caring for the guest. I really believe we start with our own team inside our 4 walls. We get that right and it has great results on the guest. All right, so that's what I believe makes Chick-fil-A different. And the number one thing, if you took nothing away from any of that, is the people. And there's a lot involved with how we look at what makes our people different. Because I truly, and we've done this, a lot of operators do this, is I've taken an employee from any other restaurant or environment who we were told is a mediocre individual, they won't excel, they won't do their best, they don't have a good attitude, and they come to our restaurant and all that changes. And then that individual will then talk to me later and be like, what happened? How were they doing that for you and they couldn't do it for me? And so it really goes that we really look at the heart of the individual, want to care for them. And some folks we can't help. Some folks we try and they just don't want to do it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I totally dismiss any argument or rationale that individuals in certain fast food sectors just are not good people, not good employees, not good workers. I really think it comes down to the environment, the leaders, and how you care for your people. All right, so that right there is Chick-fil-A in a nutshell. Do I have any questions so far? If not, I'll go on to threats and opportunities. and that won't take very long. But if I have any questions, you can unmute and ask me a question. I'll stop for about 10 seconds.
Well, I guess you can keep going, Alan.
Okay, I'll keep going. All right. So, as you look at threats and opportunities, I think every threat we have in any industry is an opportunity, and we can turn it into an opportunity. For instance, when the Chick-fil-A app rolled out, even before I became an operator, as you look around Memphis, a lot of the restaurants are not set up to really do the whole curbside thing that we do a lot of at the Bartlett location because of how tight the lots are and things like that. If you've ever been to any Chick-fil-A in the market, you're very aware of what I'm talking about. I'm fortunate that when I opened with a very large lot and a big parking lot. So the threat that a lot of the other operators experienced with the congestion of even just getting onto the lots, I didn't experience. And so we were able to turn something that has a lot of complexity to it, like the Chick-fil-A app and doing curbside meal delivery, into a wonderful opportunity for us, which in turn has made us we are the highest volume Chick-fil-A One store in the nation. And so my team has done very, very well with that. So one of the biggest threats that I do see, and I feel passionately about this, and it goes back to people, is in my own restaurant, one of the biggest threats I see that causes me to lose the most sleep and stay up the most night, that probably costs me the most money and causes the most anxiety and stress in my leaders is people. And every day we are working to produce workforce stability and to reduce our turnover. I'm not sure if you know what the turnover rate in the fast food industry is, but it's upwards of 80, even up to 120%. Chick-fil-A's typically average anywhere from 80 to 82%, which is still very high, but I believe is one of the lowest in our industry. But that's really not good enough for us, and I don't think you're going to find a Chick-fil-A operator that says that that's okay. My personal retention rate at my own restaurant is about 50%. And one thing that I have really, so for instance, in the Army, every year you would lose a third of your workforce to moving to other duty stations, to leaving the military, and you would get a third of your workforce back into your company. Well, in this industry, that doesn't happen. You really have to work to retain people and provide incentives and a good environment for them to stay. And so if you've never thought about what it costs to go and hire a new employee, Chick-fil-A did some studies on this, and they came up with it costs about $1,500 to hire one new person. That's just a team member. That's not a leader. That's someone that comes in with zero skill level and how to actually conduct the operations of the restaurant. They don't know how to properly make a sandwich, bag a sandwich, make a sweet tea. They don't know any of that. From the time that you spent recruiting them and onboarding them and uniforms and orientation, initial training, they're looking at about $1,500. That's a lot of money. And you can do the math on this, but I have 125 people on staff at my restaurant, and I hire about 10 to 15 a month, depending upon the season. And that's actually a fairly average number, 10 to 15. And some places that could be considered low, even in Chick-fil-A. And so one thing I've really had to change my mindset on is how I look at turnover. We're not, there's some people that I can't keep for various reasons. Either I'm not providing what they are looking for in a job, or there's problems with attendance, or maybe I'm not doing something right in terms of providing them clear expectations. And so there are some folks that just don't stay with us. But I am happy to say in my own restaurant, as we've really worked hard on this over the last 2.5 years, our retention rate and turnover rate are better than the average Chick-fil-A across the country, who generally have one of the lowest in our industry. But when I look at turnover, I'm looking at are people leaving me because they're unhappy with the culture, which is not acceptable. That is something that I don't tolerate. That means we have to fix ourselves immediately. It's not their fault, it's our fault. It's not their fault to provide a great culture. It's my responsibility to provide a great culture and then draw them into what makes us who we are, to want them to stay. And so if I'm losing people to other places because they're citing problems with culture or problems with leadership, or the work environment is not good, or it's too stressful, or they're being overworked and not fairly compensated, then those are things that I look at as negative, and that's where I really focus my time and attention, because I've always told my folks, I want you to stay with me forever. But if this is not what you want to do long term, I want to provide you an honest and fair wage for a hard day's work, provide for you and care for you every which way I can, and help you into your next career if that's what you want to do. And so I don't lose hardly anybody nowadays to those things that I want to avoid. Typically, I lose people because they're moving to another geographic location, they're going off to college, they might be going back to school and actually getting a job in their career field, which we have a lot of folks in nursing school and also to become teachers. And so those things I'm okay with. And so you kind of have to shift your mindset of how you look at turnover, because I really look at it in terms of culture, what I'm doing to set the right tone at my restaurant. In my restaurant and most Chick-fil-A's, we don't see ourselves as competing with McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, which I do hire a lot of people from those restaurants and many, many others who do a fabulous job. I really see my competition as places like Amazon and UPS and FedEx and Starbucks and Target, typically because they pay higher wages. And I pay higher wages to the fast food industry, where my average wage is almost $15 and what we do. And most of my senior directors actually make more money than I did when I was a captain in the Army. And so I really work hard to personally provide for them at the restaurant, and they in turn understand what my expectations are, and have really just catapulted my restaurant to places I never thought we could be in a million years. And so I'm very grateful. And so to continue on with the threat, I think that in today's climate, you have to pay people. You have to pay people well to attract good people in order to keep them. And I used to not have that belief when I first started, but I have that belief, and I kind of get it confirmed about every other day when we hire people, is that to me, it's worth paying extra money for increased productivity, because it creates a less stressful environment and a place where we can really serve our guests that much better. And my team responds to that, and they do an incredible job. And the last thing I would say that I probably do to help combat the threat of turnover and to keep retention is our evaluation program, setting clear expectations, and that we actually have programs for all of our team members to grow. And we actually give them a document called the Path for Growth that shows them how they move up to the next level at my restaurant from the day they're hired. So a great opportunity I see during this time with COVID, and then I'll be, I got one more thing and then I'll be done talking. But a great opportunity I see for my restaurant and for my industry, and especially Chick-fil-A, is the level of trust that Chick-fil-A has built with our guests pre-COVID has, during COVID, really catapulted my personal restaurant and our entire franchise into even more growth than what we were experiencing prior. There are a lot of industries that have been struggling, and very sympathetic that but the Lord's blessed us, and our guests have blessed us, and that they continue to come and see us. And so I think establishing and maintaining trust with guests is a fabulous opportunity as we go into 2021 for how my personal restaurant creates customer demand and builds a local brand for the future. If a guest loses trust with you because they feel it's not safe, or it's not fast, or it's not good, or the orders are wrong, they're just going to go somewhere else. And so we have a great opportunity to maintain and even gain more trust with our guests. Now, that's one thing that my 2021 business plan is focusing on, is how we build a local brand for the future, and we generate customer demand by earning and keeping the trust of our guests. All right, last thing is I want to share my vision for the future. So for me, at my restaurant in Bartlett, part of my vision for the future is that in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm looking to have my second restaurant. I'm looking for ways I can grow my personal brand in Bartlett and the surrounding community, provide opportunity for my leaders. And community outreach is also a big part of our brand and a big part of what we're going to be focusing on in 2021. And we're hoping that things will, get back to a semblance of normal of what they were prior to. We can do really what makes Chick-fil-A unique, which is get our cow out there, lead with real food, and get our people in front of other people. So that's one thing I'm looking at for next year. And the last thing, which I think gets missed a lot, is at my restaurant, we keep things simple. We keep things simple and consistent, that if we can't do it well and do it to the best of our ability, we just don't do it, because then it's just not worth doing, and we're not going to accomplish the objectives that we want, and probably fail to create a world-class experience and a remarkable experience. So we strive to be all that we do, we strive to be world-class. And so having a vision for the future doesn't mean you have to get fancy and do a bunch of new stuff. Sometimes that can mean do what your guests expect, which is the basics. Do them well and do them consistently well, and make sure that you don't lose sight of what that core purpose is. And that's part of what we're looking for down the road. So for all of you, as you're looking at what maybe a career down the road could be, don't discount Chick-fil-A. There are opportunities in the fast food industry and at local Chick-fil-A's to run multi-million-dollar restaurants, to lead upwards of hundreds of people if you have more than a restaurant. I personally have 125 people right now on that work for me, all the way from high schools all the way up to people who are in their 50s with families in college, kids in college, and so forth. So don't discount Chick-fil-A. Our corporate office in Atlanta has some fabulous opportunities, and Chick-fil-A is just full of stories of people who came from other parts of the country, other industries, got into Chick-fil-A, thought it was just a short-term temporary thing, and just fell in love with the people, fell in love with the brand, fell in love with the culture. And now they work for corporate. Now they're in the leadership development program where they travel the country and they open restaurants and new operators, and they go and run restaurants for corporate and between operators. So don't discount Chick-fil-A. Everybody thinks that maybe I have to go to a hotel or have to go to a fine dining. But I think my leaders, even the ones who had prior restaurant experience, their eyes have really been open on what the opportunities are, even in a local Chick-fil-A restaurant. And one reason we can do that is because we are high volume, we have great people, and I think that helps drive that. So we're always looking for quality talent. So if you're interested in applying, you can go, you can text CFA Bartlett. You can come by the restaurant. We have some hiring signs out there. You can look at our number. I guess I don't want to give a shameless plug on this, but we're always hiring. If you're looking to see what even Chick-fil-A looks like from the inside and you just want to work as a team member, just to help you get through college, we're always looking for great folks and provide opportunities for you. And we're very flexible with our schedules. And we understand where your place in life is, which is to get your education, not to come work for me for 40 hours and do all that stuff. So, all right. So that's all I have. That's in a nutshell, just to recap who I am, where I'm from, how I became an operator, how you can become an operator, how you can get into Chick-fil-A and what Chick-fil-A can hold for you. And that our people really is what makes my restaurant and our brand and Chick-fil-A completely different, I think, from our competition. All right, so at this time, I will stop talking and I will open it up to questions.
What questions do we have for Ellen before I jump in and monopolize the conversation?
Alan, since the students are not asking, first of all, I want to thank you for your partnership. The Kimmons Wilson School is many times better with your partnership. And I thank Tim also for bringing you into our membership, the partnership here. So the question I have is, so what is the future for somebody like you with Chick-fil-A? How does the company, do you have an opportunity to get another franchise, or how does additional stores work with the company, with their model?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. I just want to say that I feel like I'm the one privileged to be partnered with y'all. That y'all wanted me to come do this, and the opportunities it gives me and my brand, I think is really exciting for many, many years to come. So the cool thing about Chick-fil-A is that, like in a lot of industries, the thinking on how many restaurants you can have has evolved and has really opened up. If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, it might be, well, maybe 2 if you're absolutely amazing in every which way, form, or fashion, and there's no defects or flaws in your operation. Now you can own actually up to 4 restaurants. And that could be a combination of freestanders like mine. It could be malls. It could be inline units that are led in a lot of cities that don't have drive-throughs. It could be drive-through onlys. They have a lot of those in California, which are really, really neat. And there are a couple in Atlanta. So the process is that, and it's so funny, I will have banks and investors email me like, hey, you want to buy this piece of land and come open a Chick-fil-A down the road in Lakeland or Arlington? And I'm like, well, that'd be really cool. I wish I could, but I can't. And so one of the things about Chick-fil-A, you may not know this, is that the owner-operator does not own the real estate, which is one reason that a guy like me with a mortgage and 3 kids coming out of the Army could afford to get into the franchise. So we don't own the real estate. So the corporate office does all the research and comes in and actually builds the restaurants and selects the site. But the unique thing is, if you have a store coming in close to you, I do have an opportunity to own up to 4 restaurants for the rest of my career. And they are putting in some additional restaurants in our area in the next 5 to 6 years. So I think the opportunity for me is bright. And the way it works, just like to becoming operator, is a very extensive interview process. To becoming a multi-unit operator is also a very extensive interview process. But what I think is really unique is it doesn't focus on me. It doesn't focus on how good Alan is or what he does. It really focuses on my leadership team and how can they run two restaurants at the same proficiency and efficiency that my one is running. Because if they see that I'm gonna have to split my workforce so much or my team is not equipped to do that, then I will not have that opportunity. And so I think, especially in today's climate with how much Chick-fil-A is expanding, there is a very good incentive for operators to want to get their leadership team and their operations to a point where you can handle multi-unit location, whereas 10 years ago, that really wasn't in the cards for a lot of people. So the answer is yes, and that's the story.
Thank you.
Now, Alan, Chris here, Chris Rohn. You mentioned you are the #1 highest grossing revenue Chick-fil-A in the United States. Is that right?
So I am the highest volume transaction store in Chick-fil-A right now. And I'm pretty sure we'll finish as #1 nationally for the year. Since May, we have been #1 nationally. So for instance, the reason I say transaction store is a chicken sandwich in Bartlett, Tennessee, or anywhere around Memphis will cost you $3.75. But if you go out to California and you buy that same sandwich, it might cost you $5.25. And so a store in California might serve the same number of guests that I do per day, but they could have another $1 million or $2 million a month or a year over me just because of the difference in prices. And so the way to compare apples to apples across the country, and Memphis is one of the lower priced areas across the country, if not one of the lowest, actually. And so you really have to look at transaction counts to get any kind of comparison of how much traffic is really coming in and out of that restaurant.
Now, I apologize. I have not been to your restaurant, but I assume
You gotta come see me.
I need a coupon, man.
Oh man, so the first
I know you
time
got
come up
coupons.
the first time you come see us and use your app, you'll get like 3 emails a week if you're tired of seeing my face.
Now, any given restaurant or any given physical space, you can only produce so much product. So you're restricted by the size of the of what you've got to work with. So there's a finite number of transactions that you can handle unless you're open 24/7 or something. And I know you're not. So what's the upward potential if you've maxed out your sales or transactions per square foot or however you calculate it?
Yeah. So I would say those things are very true. I would also say that at my restaurant, my leadership team and I have chosen not to buy into that. And the reason I say that is in 2019, my leaders and I looked at each other and looked at what we were doing in our workforce and said, there's no way we can grow by 30% in 2020. There's just no way. It's not possible. And then COVID-19 hit. And then we were forced to do that because there were so many people. There were so many folks that were closed. You had very few options of where you could go. And so, for instance, in the middle of March, when everything shut down, our curbside more than doubled in the span of 5 days. And in 5 days, I had to figure out how to get out twice the volume out of one segment of my business. And remember, the kitchen is not getting bigger to grow with your business. And so one thing that we do, my team does really, really well. Now, sorry, I had a bug in my face. One thing that we do really well and we spend a lot of time on is continuous improvement. I'm having conversations with Chick-fil-A right now about 2021 and how at my price group and my volume, how do I continue to grow into 2021 and produce a remarkable guest experience and provide a good environment for my team. For instance, so what we do now to help combat that, and all those things you said are true, but you have to find ways to produce more with the same amount of equipment. And so what we look at is we have reworked our kitchen. We reworked our flow of food, reworked where our team goes. We have looked at simplifying every single position to make it simpler and easier and faster to do, which then in turn means I have to add more people, which means I have to hire more, which costs me more. But at the same time, what I have found is that making that investment and training them correctly and setting clear expectations and making it a workload that people can handle, you keep your people longer and they're going to be happier and their quality of work is going to go up with the right leadership, which in turn has yielded a much, much higher volume for my restaurant than I thought we honestly could ever produce in 2020. No one ever looked at Bartlett, Tennessee going and doing what we're doing. We're actually number one or number two in almost every sales metric in the country. And it's because my leaders have an attitude of continuous improvement and have found ways to either add equipment, move things around, rework our flow, add people, simplify each and every duty, make everything very specific and almost foolproof to where I can take a new team member and I can take 5 minutes to train them on that one spot, and it will be a pivotal part of helping the team at that moment accomplish the mission of getting the food out to the guests and doing it right. And so that's one thing, like you said, how do you grow? How do you continue to produce more out of the same? We look at people, we look at processes, we look at flow, we look at efficiencies in every single way. I spend a lot of money to produce what I feel like is an extra 2 or 3% in efficiency, but at my volume and over the span of a year, it will help me retain people and make a better experience for my guests, which means I think they're going to trust me more, want to come back to me to get that time and time again. And so that's the things that that's basically been our conversation this whole year, is how do we continue to do more and more and more and more with the exact same thing we've been given. And so that's funny you bring that up. That's a hot topic every day with my leadership team, especially as we're looking at 2021 business plan.
Hey, Alan, Tim Floor here. How are you?
Hey, Tim, good to hear your voice. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Now, a lot of the students here haven't had me yet, but I am the internship coordinator for the Kimmons Wilson School, and started talking with Alan a little bit over a year ago as we were just opening up the Culinary Institute, and we put together a really nice or discussed an internship program. So a lot of you who are going to be going into internship in the future, I want you to keep in mind Chick-fil-A has a really good program established. And Alan, I was wondering if you could talk about the internship program a little bit, and then I'll have a follow-up question after that.
Yes, sir. So we actually have a young lady who is from, I think, the hospitality side, who will be starting an internship with me in the spring, and we're going to be looking at putting her into leadership and giving her some other responsibilities to show her different aspects of the restaurant. And so I even do this for high school students, which is kind of how we first started doing it internally in the restaurant. Is the internship program is I bring you in as a team member, and I pay you what I pay my other team members according to your productivity. That's really how we look at it. So for the intern, I don't look at an internship program as a way for me to get cheap labor. I look at it as a way for me to get high performing people who do a fabulous job for me for the time that they're with me. And hopefully when they graduate, they want to stay with me because they see the opportunities. And so I'm always looking at how do I produce a leader 4 or 5 years down the road. And so the internship starts with you become a team member. First, I have to see what your capability is, what your productivity is, what your heart is. Because so much of what we do at my restaurant is I teach my people how to lead and how to lead like I was taught in the military. And you do it with your style, but you lead according to the things, to the ways I want you to lead according to some core concepts. And one of the ways and the place I get that from is from a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, who are Navy SEALs. And that is the basics of what I expect of a leader in my restaurant, because that's how I was trained. And it produces phenomenal results. So the basics is you start as a team member, look at your capability. We give you an application to become a trainer, and then a team leader, or we give you an application to become a team leader immediately because we see what you're doing. And then we put you into that role. We give you opportunities for growth and development. We give you a chance to lead people, then also expand your influence. And I teach you how to do truck. I teach you how to do payroll. I teach you how to do our end-of-month inventory counting which is how I really know what my profit numbers are and my labor numbers, all that kind of stuff. And so we teach you how to do those things. And so Samantha is really our first one we're looking at doing this with come the spring. But that's the basics of what it is. So it is still, so my expectations for the internship, it is still a job, and you are still there to work, but we give you exposure to things that you would otherwise not have, and that you can take with you when you graduate, go into another industry and say, hey, look, I came from this Chick-fil-A, here's the numbers, here's what I did. And I even, and I do this with my leaders, I even equip them to understand why we do what we do, all the internal numbers. That way, when you can put on a resume, it's going to look really, really good. And so that's the basics of the internship. It's nothing fancy, but you get paid the same thing that I would pay people who are not in an internship who are at your same level. And so you're not doing this at a discounted rate where I'm expecting a lot from you, not giving you much in return. Your expectation of me should be that I give you more than what you're giving me, because I'm looking at this as an investment, because it is an investment. But then I do expect you to give me what I expect of you. And all that's very clearly laid out. And it's pretty simple. We keep our expectations very simple. But like I said about how to run food to a car, it's simple, but not easy. If it was simple and easy, everybody could do it, but not everybody can do it. And so that's the basics, Tim, of the program in a nutshell, and the route you would take if you came into the restaurant and expressed interest in this. We'd first look at your capability. We look at your potential. We would interview you, and you'd be interviewed by me, by my directors. We would set clear expectations. We would give you the applications. We would go through those things with you. We would give you the job descriptions. We would train you according to our training program for your specific position. We'd put you through that once you've shown capability in that, and we expand that into other areas of the business to learn how we do inventory, product management, forecasting, strategic planning, all that kind of stuff, marketing. And so the sky's really the limit.
That's great. Now, I would highly recommend for any students going into the whatever facet of the industry to understand to work with a company like Chick-fil-A and to learn their systems and to really embrace the not only the philosophy but the work ethic and everything that's involved with being successful. And my second question, not to sound like a presidential moderator, but I do want to ask you on the record. Can you confirm or deny if Chick-fil-A has a secret menu? I've heard they do, and I just wanted to get that straight from you.
Chick-fil-A does not have a secret menu. There are no secret items. We do have, so I'm not on TikTok. I'll just be clear about that. But I have heard and seen on the news about these TikTok videos or other videos of employees across the country posting about all kinds of things that you can do and so forth and so forth. The thing is, they're all wrong, every single one of them. And it's spreading false, misleading information. There's even one talking about how you're not getting your value for a certain product. And my leaders and I looked at that, and our first point was, that's not even how you make it. That's not even how you do it. And so there's just completely this false information out there. So there's no secret menu. We do have what's called off menu items that each individual local owner operator can choose what they want to do. For instance, in some locations, you can just get the 4-count mini buns. Some places you can get them with cheese. Like at my location, we allow you to add Oreo cookies to a chocolate milkshake, which may not sound like a big deal, but in the food industry, everything is governed by nutritional information, labeling requirements, and so forth. And Chick-fil-A also has very, very tight brand standards that if it's not on our menu and allowed by our register system, then we are not allowed to do it unless it's allowed on the register, Chick-fil-A approves it, and we have an approved process. Because remember, if every Chick-fil-A is doing this thing differently, we're not producing consistency across the brand. Because you should go to California and get a chocolate milkshake and a Chick-fil-A sandwich meal and come to Bartlett, Tennessee, and it'd be just as good and exactly the same across the country. Even though the people and the owners, they were all unique and different. That's the point. So no, there's no secret menu.
Alan, I have a question. Would you give us your opinion and business sense on this $15 an hour minimum wage? I'm not sure what the actual official minimum wage is, if it's still $7.25. but there has been a movement to move that to $15, and you mentioned $15 earlier in your presentation. Is that a fair wage, or are you being pushed into that?
No, so minimum wage in Tennessee is still $7.25. But for instance, if you go to Arkansas, I think in January it's going up to, I think, $11. But in Tennessee it's still $7.25. No one in my restaurant makes minimum wage, not even a high school student. I have many high schoolers who are just really, really good folks, and they're making $10 plus. I even had a high schooler who was making 15 as a leader, and he was 16 years old. Because I looked at what his capability was, the content of his character, and that's what I care more about than some standard what $15 is. So $15 is not a standard in my restaurant. I have a lot of folks that make that and much, much more. I have some folks that make less. It depends on availability, it depends on your schedule. It also depends on the quality of your work. Because one thing I've always preached from day one is that my restaurant is a performance-based environment, just like the military was. It is a performance-based environment. If you perform and I can see that you can produce the productivity. I have people who all they do all day is box nuggets and they make $15. But they did start at 12 and now they're at 15. And they're loving it, and they've got benefits and so forth. So, I'm not an economist. I'm not a political person. I keep my opinions to myself. You can go do your own research on what $15 means. That might sound good, but there are a whole other host of factors that have to be considered with something of that nature. Not saying it's right or it's wrong. It depends on what area you're in, what area of the country you're in. But I know for me that I have made a choice to reward people based off what they're doing, and those that want more and that want to get a raise and want to do more for the business and my team, then we provide the opportunity and I compensate them fairly for that. And I've got a lot of folks that are supporting families and doing it very well, and I think that are happy. And every single one of my directors has told me over and over and over and over again how the most money they've ever made has been since they started working for me, because they're really good. And we look at our team members the same way, and we want them to stay with us. We want to elevate them to the next position. And when they do that, then they get paid for it. And so that's how I look at it. I mean, obviously, if a $15 minimum wage was put in place tomorrow, every single employer would have to follow it. And that's just how it would be. But then what you would see would be a corresponding price increase. The price of goods is going to increase. Just think about any time a plumber or an HVAC technician comes out, you're always paying that $79 service fee just to have them come in the door. Because there's not enough of those folks and they're expensive. And so they're just other considerations that you might have to think about if that were to happen. But if it happens, every employer's going to follow it. So it's not worth me worrying about it or debating about it. I try to care for my people. And like I said, when Amazon's paying northwards of $16 to $18 to $20, I don't think they provide the work environment that I do, but I'm competing with people like that for talent, because there really is a war on talent right now. And you have to be a preferred employer for people and what you pay, and also in the environment that you keep. And I have a lot of people who actually come back to me and might make less money, but they want the people and the environment they feel like gives them more of a sense of worth and provides just a better day for them at work every day. So that's my thoughts on that loaded question.
We have a couple of minutes left. Anything else for Alan at all? Any other questions from anybody?
Since nobody's taken, I have one quick one. There are a lot of students here who probably don't have any idea about the cost structure at a fast food restaurant. If you don't mind, I'm not asking about your restaurant, but maybe a typical Chick-fil-A, what would the labor cost be? How many employees, sales, margins, that sort of thing. Are you willing to share that? Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I'll give you chain averages. So the average freestanding restaurant in Chick-fil-A is almost $7 million, which I think is at least double, what the next closest competitor is, which is a lot of money. A lot of restaurants are usually anywhere from 80 to 150 plus team members on staff. For instance, there is one in our market that's got about 180 people on staff. A lot of part-timers. I'm a mix of part-timers and full-timers. But in terms of, so your three main costs that you want to control, if you control these three costs, you will have a good month. The first thing is your food cost. What comes into the restaurant every morning on your delivery trucks must be accounted for all the way through when they bread the chicken, all the way through when it's put in the bag to give into the guests and run through the register. So food cost is one of the most important. Your typical restaurant is going to average probably 26.5 to 27% of sales volume, so your food cost is about 26.5, 27% of your sales volume. Your labor cost, that's the other big variable, like we talked about labor earlier. It all depends on what your wage rate is and what your productivity is, but most restaurants you're going to see in the current model that we're in, where most dine-in restaurants are closed, or most Chick-fil-A dine-ins are closed, you're going to be looking at anywhere from 18 to 20% of sales and labor costs. And if our dining rooms were open, you're probably looking at from 19 to 22%, maybe even up to 24 in some restaurants. I would say that an efficient restaurant that has set the correct expectations at kind of using my wage rate, I would think that you could do it at probably about 18 to 19% efficiently. And then the last one is going to be paper cost. Typically, your paper cost is running anywhere from 3.3 up to a high end of about 3.8% of sales. And so that's three big categories on my fee calculation report on my income statement that I send to Chick-fil-A. If those three things are in order, and the rest of my restaurant, I really run it as a household budget, honestly. We control the controllables, and you can really nickel and dime yourself to death if you're not careful. And you'll lose 1.25% of profit before you even blink. And so, but those three variables, those percentages are about average and are good numbers to kind of run by.
Right.
That answer your question, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I hope that helped the students. I have a couple of my students in class, and we talk about this all the time. So thank you.
Well, it is time for us to say goodbye to Alan. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. And Alan, we're all giving you silent applause, my friend.
No.
I know, right? Yeah, I can see the thrilled look. So, but thank y'all for your time. I appreciate you listening. I know y'all probably do more Zoom calls and stuff than you care to even think about. And this is just one more call for you. But I do appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate your time. If you ever come to the restaurant, ask for me and tell me how you saw my face, and I'd love to sit down and speak with you and just get to know your story. And so to all the leaders of the Kimmons Wilson Culinary Institute and the Institute of at the high level, I really appreciate all y'all and just your time and attention and inviting me to come speak. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank y'all.